Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Podcasting Podcast. I have with me an awesome guest. Her name is Manouchka Elefant, and she is a marketing strategist and coach for mompreneurs who really gets that the juggle of those sleepless nights, those ambitions, and all the courage it takes to be scared of failing, but just do it anyway. And so you're going to be talking with us today about some tools we can use. Manouchka has also launched the Hey Boss Mama podcast. So we'll be talking about that and some of her strategies that she uses in her podcasting. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Demetria. It's really lovely to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. So we're just talking a lot about podcasting here. That's what we're all about, helping podcasters to just keep going or get started. And so you've started your show, and we want to know about you and about what you do and things that make you happy.
Okay, well, I'll give you a bit of background because I actually hadn't set from the get-go to start a podcast because when I had my son, I was running my business, which was a marketing agency, and I was really happy with that. I thought I'm going to take a few months off and then I'll just, ease back into work. And then all of a sudden I started panicking. I was like, wait, I'm not ready at all. It's such a different ballgame to run a business while you have kids, especially little kids.
Right.
And I just want to have conversations with other mom entrepreneurs, to understand how they're doing it. And then very quickly I realized, wait, I'm not the only one in the situation. There are other women that are interested. And that's when the idea for Hey Boss Mama came up, because I thought, okay, the best medium is going to be a podcast. Yeah. And I had the idea, but I had no idea where to start. Like, what tools do I use? How do I record? Mm-hmm. And you know what? Being a marketer, I knew video is the best platform. Like, this is what I should be doing. Mm-hmm. And so I started recording interviews with video. And then I just stalled on publishing because I didn't know how to edit. I didn't feel comfortable on camera, and I wanted to do solo episodes as well. Yeah. And it just I blocked me completely. Yeah. And it was only a few months later. And what's funny is that having those interviews, I was like, okay, us mom entrepreneurs, we need a mastermind where we can actually team up and brainstorm and, unblock all of our fears. Right. And I was keeping myself in my own fears with the podcast. And I was like, no, I have to put a stop to this. And I actually had my podcast project plan, and I was going through everything except the publishing. And so at some point I was like, okay, I know video is best, but I'm going to do what I can. And I decided to publish just audio. And that just liberated me. It was freeing.
I love that. I love that you said that you just chose to do what is tangible for you right here, right now, and that's audio. And so when we put aside all of there's so many options out there, right? And then when we just focus on what's has the least, what's the word I'm looking for? Barrier.
Friction? Yeah.
Yeah. And just hop into it and do what's easiest, then we start gaining momentum because now we're actually moving forward. And I love that you just said, okay, I'm going to do the thing that's easiest for me, and that's audio, and let's just do it, right? And just break through the fear of it. I like that you just made the move to do that, but then you saw there's lots of mompreneurs that are feeling the same way, and we need this community to help each other out. So I want you to share a little bit about that soon, about the community and how you're helping mompreneurs. But I kind of want to camp out on the idea of doing things afraid, right? Mm-hmm. So let's hear a bit more about how mompreneurs, and even anybody listening today who's thinking about starting a podcast, how can we move forward when we're overthinking how do I do this? There's so many options, so many tools, so many. So just kind of encourage us a little bit.
Yeah. So the first thing is this: you need to have an idea of what it is that you're trying to achieve. What's your objective? So you don't just go anywhere. You want to be structured in that sense. But of course, it's also going to depend on your personality. And some people are going to say oh, I don't like to plan. I just want to wing it. That can work to some extent, but especially if you're launching yourself into something that is new,
Hmm.
the probability is you're not going to reach your objective like this.
Right.
So I would say really take the time to think things through. Don't overthink it. So there's a balance there because especially if it's something that you've never done before, if you're like me, you're going to want to learn everything about it so that you
Yeah.
understand it.
Hmm.
And also, depending on what are your abilities and your time, there are certain things that you'll want to outsource. And I think that's something that's also not so straightforward. Like I worked with an editor for a little bit at the beginning. And to be really, really honest, like I took someone who was really affordable, someone working in the Philippines who did a very nice job, but
Hmm.
it wasn't up to level with my expectations. So I ended up actually taking over a lot of it.
Hmm.
But the thing is this, like you have to decide it's going to be a trade-off. Either you take the time to learn, either you take the time to do it yourself, or you spend the money to outsource it. So you
Right.
kind of have to like juggle between these three aspects. So you could do certain aspects yourself, others you could decide to outsource.
Right.
But really, ideally, you are very clear on what it is that you want to do, what are your abilities, and what is the time and money that you have to spend.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a trade-off somewhere. It's
Yeah.
either time or it's
Yeah.
money. So you have to figure out where
Yeah.
you are.
And it's hard to be good at everything. And
Right.
podcasting, unless you're used to like talking in front of a mic and a camera, it's
Mhm.
not that simple. So also choose like your medium because you don't have to do it all, like I learned. And I do wish that, or rather, I am learning to speak in front of a camera and get more comfortable. It is something that is a skill that is acquired.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not used to talking in front of a camera, but it's something that I think as business owners, we push ourselves to do more and more because in this day and age, it's become expected.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, just have a vision, think about how you're going to achieve that. So have that plan in place. And what I did personally is that I developed my own project plan for my podcast. And it's something that I'm actually going to be sharing with your audience if they're interested, because it's something that I really mapped out with a lot of thought and all the different steps that I had to take in order to create my podcast. Everything is in there. And it was such a blessing to have that. And
Yeah.
really, it makes a huge difference because then you're structured and you know where you're going.
Exactly. It takes a load off when you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single
Yeah.
time you get in front of your microphone. And
Yeah.
yeah, I want to especially dig into your project plan really soon because that's super helpful, I know. And it's very organized and I just love it. So, okay, we're talking about doing things afraid. We're talking about getting started and
Yeah.
also about getting into our routines according to our personality type, like what suits us the best, right? And what our goals are.
Mhm.
So right now you're in a season of motherhood where you have to balance all of that with being a mama. And so I want you to encourage mompreneurs out there who are listening right now as well. How how do you integrate your work life, your podcasting world, the things you do as a coach, as a business owner, with life as a mom? Because that's a lot.
Mhm. Yes, it is. And in this season, I don't actually have a lot of time. That's my smallest or shortest resource. Okay, money as well, but time definitely is up there because my son is turning 2 actually this summer.
Wow.
And the first year we decided we're not outsourcing any of our childcare. Everything was at home with me, sometimes a little bit with grandma, and that's great to have her around. But now I have 2 days a week and sometimes half an extra half day. So about 2.5 days a week. It's not enough to do everything. So it was really important for me to prioritize and be extra clear on what it is that I want to create for my business. And actually, one of the things that turned out with the Hey Boss Mama podcast is that it also reinvented my business because
Wow.
like I mentioned before, I was running a marketing agency. I was working with all kinds of entrepreneurs and even some 500 businesses and
Wow.
Forbes 500 businesses. And so when I was working on a podcast, I felt so passionate. I actually realized this is what I want to do and just dedicate myself to. And
Yeah.
I transformed my business and I actually really closed my marketing business. And I'm still working with some of my old clients who are mom entrepreneurs and who decided to work with me for coaching and through the masterminds. But it completely changed my vision and my mission. And
Wow.
so I think what's interesting here is that it's not something that is just set in stone. It's completely you have to have that flexibility, that resilience. Because when you're working and you have a toddler, I think any mom entrepreneur knows what it's like. But it just takes a lot of flexibility, and you have to stay motivated because you're going to have times when you just don't want to get up in the morning to work because you're tired, your toddler is throwing tantrums, all kinds of things like that. But what's important is that you always go back to your core mission and why you decided to do what you're doing.
Hmm.
And it's not fluff. It has to be real for you. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Ooh, that's good. I love what you said. That it's not fluff and it has to be real. And it has to meet you where you are. It has to be something
Mhm.
tangible and doable for you. I love that. I remember when my toddler 20 years ago, I remember just
Wow.
that feeling of like, how am I going to balance all of it? But like you said, like there's that time of your day when you're able to focus on business, maybe toddlers taking a nap, maybe just whenever, but we have to find those places in our day and we figure it out somehow or other
Yeah.
because of our passion, because we feel driven to do the work we're doing. So that's really, really awesome that I love talking to mompreneurs because like there's just this certain edge we have when we know we want something in business and we have to work it around our families, but somehow we find that edge and we do it. And I think that's phenomenal and admirable. So
Yeah, completely. But
yeah.
you know what's interesting too is that there's that thing with podcasting and being in business that is so similar is that you don't do things once and then it's done. You
Hmm.
can go back to it and tweak it and rearrange it. And I'm actually in a season right now. This summer, I decided to go back to my basics because I just realized like I've been throwing myself with ideas like the mastermind, and then I had recently a visibility challenge
Hmm.
to help mompreneurs get more confidence. And
Hmm.
I'm doing all these things because I'm passionate. I have all those ideas, and then I'm like, wait, I haven't really set up my foundations properly. So this is what I'm doing this summer. And it's the same thing with podcasting. You can start and just try to figure things out for the start, like when you're launching, so that you have a proper launch and you're happy with that. But then
Hmm.
you can go back to it and you can reanalyze, is this working? Is this actually understood by my target audience? Are
Right.
they really feeling what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Is the description of my show properly explaining that, or my artwork? All of
Yeah.
this, it's not
Yeah.
set in stone. You can go back to it, you can tweak it, and I think that's also
Exactly.
something that keeps people from starting. Is that they're worried, like, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be perfect? But you don't have to get it to that level. You have to get it to good enough. And if you're looking at your favorite podcast, just be very mindful, like how many years have been they been doing that? Because if they've been in business for like 10, 15 years and their podcast has been that old,
Hmm.
of course you're not going to get that quality from the get-go.
Hmm.
Unless, of course, you're working with professionals like Demetria, but you have to accept that it's not going to be amazing, amazing from the get-go. It's going to be good,
Hmm.
but it will reach that point. The more shows you do, the
That's
better
right.
it's going to get.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for reminding us. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, and especially to be honest, the first year or two, don't even try to reach like perfection. Just, I mean, you never have to reach perfection, but those first couple of years, I'm thinking that's when we get our content together. That's when we are sharing our passions. That's when we're connecting with our audience. And so I think that's so important not to put that kind of high level pressure on ourselves to sound perfect, look perfect, be perfect. It's not about that. It's just about finding our voice and finding ourselves
Yeah.
and finding that connection with our audience. So it takes a huge load off when we look at it that way. And just know, like you said, I mean, with years and with time, we gain more credibility, we gain more practice, and it gets easier and easier. But those first couple of years, whoa, like for me, I remember I would say my first 10 years were pretty rough, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's a whole decade of experimenting. And I still have a lot of things I can change, but I love that we can always go back, like you said, and
Mhm.
change, our artwork, even the way how we do our podcast, like our formats, like anything that we
Mhm.
think needs some tweaking, there's freedom to do that. So yeah, I'm with you on that. So as far as like your workflow, what has changed over the years for you and in terms of like being a mompreneur, being busy, any kind of hacks you have that you found really useful for your workflow, and what does your workflow look like?
Sure. Well, when it comes to podcasting, I separate my workflow for working with guests and doing solo episodes. And one of the things that I love about the interviews I'm doing is that it's very much free flow. So I choose a person to participate on my podcast because I like their vibe or their business or what they seem to create around themselves between their family, their business, and their own life, because you also need that space for yourself. And, a lot of mom entrepreneurs tend to forget about that.
Right.
But then, so I choose my guests based on that. And then I'll read their bios, I'll have more familiarity with what they do. And we just jump into conversations. And I like the idea that it's like you're at a coffee shop and you're just talking with another person, asking them for tips, trying to understand how they do things. And then when I do solo shows, do I have a very different approach because I'm thinking, what are the things I have in my pipeline in terms of what are the messages or the launches that I'm going to be having over the next few months? And so I look at that in a more strategic way because this is my opportunity to showcase who I am, why
Mhm.
you would want to work with me, or, like that credibility and authoritative aspect of talking with other people, or rather to other people. And I try to keep it in a very pragmatic, practical way. And I'm really talking about the things that I'm doing because my business is still in the starting blocks. And I actually did the math this morning because I thought to myself, like, I started recording last September. Shortly after that, I decided to just focus on Hey Boss Mama. But I only really had 2.5 days each week since then. So although it's been 9 months, in reality, I only had like 4.5 months of working on my business. So it's really in its infancy.
Right.
And first of all, that kind of reassured me and gave me a lot of perspective. But I also felt, okay, it is really the right time for me to take that step back this summer and really look at the foundations and be strategic so that I have the best layout or the best base to go from there. But so, yeah, so when I look at my solo episodes, I wanted to work with my strategy. And for that, I need to know what it is that I'm trying to create.
Exactly, exactly. And I love that you said you're strategic. That is, I think, the core of anything we should be doing in terms of our business, but also our podcast. I mean, we don't want to just be out here doing our work and not know how it relates to our business or organization, ministry, whatever it is we're working on. There needs to be some type of a systemic approach, I guess. And that foundation, we have to know what our base is, like you said, and build everything on that foundation. And so the podcast is a part of that. And I see that you're integrating it into what you do and you're really taking a look at what you do. So you're doing a great job. I mean, wow. So you've been in this for a short while, but like not too short. And so you've been able to look back on what you've done so far and assess where you need to go. But I think that's very wise of you. Like, I know a lot of us just really started and just kept going and didn't take the time to evaluate. So I love that you're taking that time to say, okay,
Thank you.
how do I move forward from here?
But there are some aspects that I know I'm neglecting as well because from the get-go, I started a Facebook group because I wanted more entrepreneurs to have a space where they can communicate. And I didn't want this to be about the podcast, really. Like, of course, sharing my updates, but I wanted this to be really a space where they would be asking questions, answering each other, being there for each other. And I'm feeling so excited every time that I see there are connections being formed, people working together, but the group hasn't reached the expectations that I was hoping. Like, unless I'm actually creating conversations, there isn't much happening yet. And the group is
Right.
still small.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at some of the podcasts that I love who have similar groups for different audiences, and it's like exploding of comments and posts, and people are really interacting.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's something that I know long term it's going to grow and develop.
Hmm.
But it also has the essence of why I decided to focus on mom entrepreneurs is that I love that sense of community that we have just because we have that element of understanding each other's problematics and ambitions.
Right.
So there are some aspects of developing the podcast and alongside of your business we have to be like, okay, maybe this I'll put on pause for now, or not just really develop it as much as I wanted to.
Hmm.
And that could be social media, it could be having your newsletter, all of that. It has to be aligned, of course, to what you want to create and what is your bandwidth.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
want to focus on the things that are going to make some results for you the faster possible, the fastest possible. Because unless you're doing a podcast for fun, maybe it's like a comedy show or maybe it's something around faith, if it's related to your business, it has to make sense. And so for me,
Mhm.
it's that mix of there's the passion. I want to build a community. I want mom entrepreneurs to feel less alone and more understood. But I also want it to be a business
Right.
because for me, it works together,
Yeah.
passion and business. I've been raised by entrepreneurs, but
Right.
like it's about finding that balance, basically.
Yeah. Finding the balance and taking your time to discover like what your mission is, getting that foundation together, like you mentioned earlier, and then going from there. I love that you mentioned the comparison syndrome too. The like someone else is going a little bit faster or gaining a little bit more traction here and there, but we have bandwidth is the word that you mentioned. We have to see our bandwidth and also realize that our traction is going to be different than someone else's, right? And so maybe our growth is takes a little longer in certain areas. Maybe we're getting our we're building our audiences in a different way. And so all of that plays into how we see our business and how we're able to keep going even when it
Yeah.
looks like it's going slow. It's going right, and that's where we have to keep encouraging ourselves like it's going to be okay. Ours is just going to look different, and that's absolutely okay. And then when our kids get older, then there's that other side of our lives that we can explore a little bit more because now they're at school or what have you. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you're using your podcast project plan to help you with these resources. And how did you develop this? Like what inspired you? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, but I'd like to know more about like what was that breaking point where you said I need something, and then how you're helping other people with this project plan.
Yeah. So basically, since I was new to this, like completely new, the first thing I did was get a lot of information. So I scoured all of the internet. Like there was a lot of resources on the Spotify for creator side, on script sites. I also love the one from Riverside. A lot of information. I watched a lot of videos. I even took a course on podcasting. So I basically took all of that information and put it in one place. So that it was a flow, a workflow that really just made sense. I made sure that I had all the steps in there and then some. And it's something that was really focused on having everything ready for the launch. And what's funny is, so I started the recording in September, and so I already had my podcast launch plan. I went through some of the steps then, but then the actual launch I did in January for my 40th birthday. I was like, okay, I'm turning 40. There's no more like fearing this. I'm just going to do it.
Just
And
do it.
so I did it. And I worked a lot to have everything ready for publication. And at that time, I still had my editor helping me, especially with the sound quality. That's still something that I'm having a hard time to
Mhm.
do, as you know. But basically, having that podcast launch plan, it just helped me make sure I didn't forget anything,
Mhm.
that I had all my ducks in order because I wanted a certain level of professionalism. Even though I was okay with it not being perfect, I want it to be a nice experience for people who are going to be listening.
Right.
And, like, of course, I'm not going to have the best gear. I'm still learning how everything works. I don't have a real camera. I'm using my iPhone as a
Mhm.
remote camera. And actually, it works pretty well when it does work.
Yeah.
But, like, you have to adapt little by little. And having that launch plan, it just makes a lot of sense to be strategic,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, keeps everything in one place so
Yeah,
you're not all over the place, and you can focus on what's the next step. I love it. And I
exactly.
and I have your plan, and it is beautiful. And so I can't wait for you to share that with others in a moment because I think it's definitely like we need a second brain almost, like just a second
Yeah.
like a go-to kind of support tool that helps us keep track of what we're doing. Podcasting is not that simple. It's simple enough, but there are processes that need to be a part of our workflow, and we need something to keep us organized. And so I love that what you're offering allows us to stay in that organization zone. But I know mamas are listening right now because I love talking to mompreneurs too. So I know they're listening. And for those that are sitting on the edge of starting a podcast, and even creatives and entrepreneurs who are not mompreneurs who are listening right now, sitting on the edge and don't really know if they have everything it takes to get started. They don't have the right equipment. They don't have the right tools. They don't have the project plan yet. They don't have
Mhm.
an editor yet. They haven't outsourced anything. They don't really know where to start. And so it
Mhm.
can feel overwhelming. What advice do you have for them? Just maybe some words of encouragement, just kind of boost us into getting into podcasting if that's where our hearts are leading us.
Well, first, you don't have to do it. You have to do it because you want to, and it's something that you enjoy. You might not have done it yet, but you enjoy the concept of it. And so I would say just do it. Basically, just do it. Project plan, download it, go through the steps, and make sure that you get it into your calendar. Because if it's
Yeah,
just in the project plan, it's not connected to your everyday, and you're just gonna forget about it. So
it's
make sure at least the milestones are in your calendar, and you focus, like block some focus time to get chunks of it done. That's the best way. But yeah, just do it. That's the only thing. You have to get over that fear. No, don't be scared of like what other people are going to think, or am I going to look good on camera or audio? Like, am I going to make sense? Just get it done with, because once you start, that fear will be behind you, and then you can
yeah,
just move forward to the next one and the next one and
right.
learn as you go.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just do it, learn as you go. And then I also would love to, like when I first started, I asked for feedback. I didn't want to because the fear of like, what if it's negative feedback? But sometimes feedback is really just instrumental in helping us to feel like, okay, I know that this person said I need to work on this, or maybe there's something that they really loved about what I did and that encourages me. So I think feedback's really important too. I love everything that you've been sharing with us today. I think those that are listening are like, well, how can I get that? I want that project plan. Like, how do I do it? So tell us how we can reach you and get our hands on the project plan.
And don't be scared if you're not a mom entrepreneur, you're also allowed to get it.
That's right. That's
Uh,
right.
it's also for you if you're a man and in your 50s, don't worry.
There you go.
But anyways, it's a resource for everyone. You can get it at heybossmama.com/product podcast launch. Sorry, heybossmama.com/podcast launch. And there you basically get your copy and make it your own. Customize it as much as you feel fit, and add in there your notes, your little descriptions, everything that will help you to get it done.
There you go. Let's get it done. I mean, Manouchka said we can do this, so let's do it. Thank you
You
so
can.
much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Demetria. It was lovely.